Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My younger brother is a massive Nintendo fan, and he'd been dropping hints for months about wanting to play online with his friends. So when his birthday started creeping up about a year ago, I knew exactly what I wanted to get him. A 6-month Nintendo Switch Online membership gift card. Something he'd actually use. Something that would make him happy. I'd saved up some money from odd jobs around the neighborhood, and I was pretty proud of myself for planning ahead. Most 14-year-olds would just grab whatever was convenient the day before, but not me. I wanted to be a good older sibling. My best friend offered to come along to the shop with me. We'd been mates since primary school, and he was always down for a trip to the shops, even if it was just to wander around and look at stuff we couldn't afford. We headed to our local supermarket. It's one of those massive ones that sells everything from groceries to electronics. I made a beeline for the gift card section, and there it was. The exact card I needed. There was only one left. I grabbed it immediately, feeling relieved. My friend and I then wandered around the store picking up some snacks for ourselves. That's when we heard it. A kid crying. Not just crying, wailing. The kind of dramatic, theatrical sobbing that echoes through an entire building. It was coming from the gift card section we'd just left. We exchanged a look but didn't think much of it. Kids cry in shops all the time. We made our way to the checkout, snacks and gift card in hand. That's when things went sideways. A woman walked up to us with a boy who looked about 8 or 9 trailing behind her. His face was red and puffy from crying, and he was pointing directly at the gift card in my hand. She demanded to know what we thought we were doing. My friend stepped in before I could respond, telling her we were just paying and asking why she wanted to know. She asked if her son could have the gift card, and my friend flatly told her no and asked her to leave us alone. I nodded in agreement, hoping that would be the end of it. She exploded. She asked how we dared to threaten her like that. She said it was her son's birthday today and that he needed that gift card or he would be in a bad mood for the rest of the day. I wanted to point out that nobody had threatened anyone, but I was too stunned by her logic. Her son needed a gift card or he'd be in a bad mood. That was her argument? While she was ranting, I noticed movement behind me. Her son had positioned himself and was actually trying to tackle me to get the card. He was small and not very coordinated, so it wasn't exactly threatening. More like a kitten attacking a shoe. My friend burst out laughing. She demanded to know how he dared to laugh at her child. She threatened to call the police and claimed she had gotten 12 people arrested before. We both stared at her. 12 people? For what? Existing near her. We decided the best course of action was to ignore her and just pay for our stuff. This did not go over well. She started screaming at us. She called us brats and said we were 14 and didn't need the gift card anyway. She told us to play fair on the younger kids. I told her we had it first and that if she didn't like it, she could go away. Then I asked why her kid needed toys anyway and said she should save it for the babies. I probably shouldn't have said that last part, but I was annoyed. I've been polite up until then, and she was screaming at us in the middle of a shop. What happened next nearly made my heart stop. She screamed for security at the top of her lungs. I'm not exaggerating when I say everyone in that section of the store turned to look. I felt my hands start to shake. I'm not good with confrontation. Never have been. My mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. What if they believed her? What if we got in trouble? What if they called our parents? A security guard came jogging over, looking tired but professional. He asked what the problem was. She told him that we were brats who had taken her purchased gift card that she was buying for her son's birthday tomorrow. My friend caught it immediately. He pointed out that she had said the birthday was today just a moment ago. She started screaming that he was a liar and demanded the security guard kick him out. By now, a small crowd had gathered. People were watching with a mixture of shock and fascination. I could see some of them shaking their heads at the woman. The security guard asked her if she could show some proof. He said if she couldn't, he would have to ask her to leave. She refused. She asked why she should show proof for something she knew. A smile crept onto my face. I told the security guard that her son was still trying to get my gift card. Sure enough, the kid was still behind me, making grabbing motions toward my hand. She insisted the gift card wasn't mine but hers. Then she told the guard to let her son do what he wants. The security guard told her he was going to ask her to leave if she didn't show proof of purchase. She said fine and told him he had just lost a customer for life. She said this as if it were some devastating blow. This was a massive supermarket chain, one of the biggest in the country. The security guard's expression didn't change at all. When she stormed off, dragging her son behind her, the security guard turned to us. He apologized for what happened and told us she always causes a lot of trouble around here. He said if she does it again, she'll be banned from all their stores. We thanked him, paid for our stuff, and left. I was still shaking a bit, but mostly I felt relieved. We'd handled it. The gift card was mine. My brother was going to have a great birthday. My friend and I walked together for a while before splitting off toward our own homes. He lived in the opposite direction from me, so we said goodbye at the usual corner. What happened next? I only know because he told me about it later. So some details might not be perfectly accurate, but I trust him. The woman followed him. She actually followed a 14-year-old boy through the streets, trying to stay far enough back that he wouldn't notice. Her son was with her, struggling to keep up. My friend was almost home when the kid blew their cover. He shouted to his mom that my friend was right there, only a couple meters away. The kid ran up behind my friend, checking his pockets and bag for the gift card. The woman yelled at my friend to give it to her now and said she knew he had it. My friend told her he didn't have it and asked her to leave him alone. She didn't believe him. She raised her hand and tried to slap him. My friend dodged. She swung again, aiming for his legs this time. He stepped back. She missed him completely and hit her own son instead. The kid started screaming. A neighbor who'd been watching the whole thing from their window came outside. They'd already called the police. Long story short, she was arrested. My friend was fine. A bit shaken up, but fine. The neighbor gave a statement about what they'd witnessed, and apparently this wasn't the first complaint about this woman in the area. As for me, I gave my brother the gift card on his birthday. He was thrilled. He'd been wanting to play online with his school friends for ages, and now he finally could. I was working at one of those big electronics stores. You know the type. The ones with a tech support counter where people bring in their broken computers and phones and whatnot. We used to joke that our department should have been called something like the Nerd Herd, because that's basically what we were. A bunch of tech geeks helping people figure out why their computers were running slow or why their screens were doing weird things. Our store was located in Columbus, Georgia, which sits right on the border with Alabama. There's a bridge that connects us to Phoenix City on the Alabama side, and this geographical detail matters for the story. See, because of where we were, we got a real mixed bag of customers. A lot of military folks would come up from the nearby army base, and they were generally awesome, polite, patient, and appreciative of the work we did. But we'd also get some people from across the state line who were, how do I put this nicely, not exactly progressive in their thinking. Some of them had some pretty old-fashioned ideas about who should and shouldn't be doing certain jobs based on things like skin color or gender. Now let me paint you a picture of who I was at the time. That I'm a girl who stands at 5'1" on a good day. Back then, I weighed maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. I was practically a hobbit. But despite my size, I was one of the lead technicians in the department. When the new hires got stuck on something or couldn't figure out a problem, they came to me. I'd been there long enough and knew enough about computers that I'd earned my spot. The team I worked with was incredible. My general manager was a great guy who actually cared about his employees, and my direct supervisor was absolutely the man. We go out for drinks after work sometimes. Despite it being retail, which can be soul-crushing, it was honestly one of the best jobs I ever had. So one day, I'm working the front counter. My job was to check customers in, run some basic diagnostics on their devices, and give them an estimate for repairs. Pretty standard stuff. That's when he walked in. I'll call him Bigoted Joe. He was wearing a cut-off shirt, worn-out denim jeans, and a baseball cap with a Confederate flag on it. His haircut was one of those business in the front, party in the back situations. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not one to judge people by how they look. I've had plenty of customers come in looking exactly like this guy who turned out to be absolute sweethearts. Never judge a book by its cover, right? But something about the way he carried himself made me put my guard up. I really hoped this wasn't going to go sideways. Bigoted Joe walked up to the counter carrying his computer tower and practically slammed it down on the desk like he was trying to hurt it. He told me he needed it fixed because it was broken. I started to tell him that I'd be happy to take a look and see what I could do, but he cut me off mid-sentence. The look on his face shifted to pure disgust, like I'd just insulted his mother. He asked what I thought I was doing in a tone that made it clear he wasn't actually looking for an answer. I tried again. I explained that if he gave me a moment, I could take a look at his computer and give him an estimate for the repair. That's when he really lost it. He shouted that there was no way in hell he was letting a woman touch his computer. He said there was no way a woman could know anything about computers. Then he demanded to speak to a manager. Oh yes, this was going to be good. Now technically I could have pulled the whole I am the manager thing. I was senior staff after all. But here's the thing. My direct supervisor was actually in the back room at that very moment, working on some repair projects, and I couldn't resist the opportunity that was presenting itself to me. I told him, of course, right away, that I would get the manager for him immediately. I said it as sweet as iced tea on a summer day. Then I walked to the back. My supervisor was elbow deep in a motherboard replacement when I found him. I must have had the biggest grin on my face because he looked up at me confused. I told him there was a guy out front asking for the manager. He looked at me funny because he was technically just a supervisor, not the general manager of the whole store. But then I explained exactly what was waiting for him at the counter. Let me tell you about my supervisor. He was a 6'3", 280-pound black man who looked like he could bench press a truck. But despite his intimidating size, he was the biggest teddy bear you'd ever meet. Everyone in our department loved him. He was kind, patient, and genuinely cared about his team. When I finished explaining the situation, his face split into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. He wiped his hands off and walked out to the front counter with me following close behind. The moment Bigoted Joe saw my supervisor step out from the back, his face went through about 15 different emotions in the span of 2 seconds. My supervisor greeted him politely and asked what the problem was. Bigoted Joe absolutely lost it. It started with him shouting that this couldn't be happening and quickly devolved into the most racist tirade I have ever witnessed in my entire life. I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I won't pretend like racism doesn't exist up north because it absolutely does. But I had never seen anything quite like this. It was awful and yet somehow amazing to watch at the same time. Like a car crash you can't look away from. Bigoted Joe started screaming at the top of his lungs. He was using the nastiest slur you can imagine. You know the one. He kept repeating it over and over while customers and staff alike watched in horror. Some people grabbed their kids and walked away. Others stood frozen, mouths hanging open. Security had to come over to try and calm him down. Here's the thing though, our entire security team happened to be black as well. So naturally, Bigoted Joe went even crazier. His face was turning red. Veins were popping out on his neck. He was pointing fingers and screaming threats at everyone around him. Eventually, it became clear that security wasn't going to be able to handle this on their own. My general manager came out of his office to see what all the commotion was about. When he saw what was happening, he immediately called the police. Now, I don't know who the dispatcher was that day, but God bless them. They sent 2 black officers to respond to the call. I almost died laughing. Me and my general manager were literally the only white people involved in this entire situation at that point. Everyone else, my supervisor, security, the responding officers, all black. And there was Bigoted Joe in the middle of it all, losing his absolute mind. When the officers walked in, Bigoted Joe somehow found another gear. He started threatening me, calling me a witch, and other names I won't repeat. He was threatening security. He was threatening my supervisor. He was using language that would make a sailor blush. The officers didn't even blink. They were calm, professional, and completely unbothered by his tantrum. They asked him to leave peacefully. He refused. They asked again. He screamed louder, so they cuffed him. Watching bigoted Joe get handcuffed while he foamed at the mouth and screamed slurs at everyone around him was honestly the highlight of my week, maybe my whole month. He was dragged out of that store still yelling, still threatening, still spewing hatred at anyone within earshot. After he was gone, the store went quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then a few more people joined in. My supervisor just shook his head and left. The general manager apologized to all the customers who had to witness that mess. Me? I went back to the counter and helped the next customer in line like nothing had happened. My dad has been in education for over 20 years now. He worked his way up from teaching history to becoming an assistant principal, and he's seen some stuff. For the past several years, he was at a school that was basically a pressure cooker waiting to explode. Overcrowded hallways, kids dealing drugs in the bathrooms, fights breaking out so often that he kept a mental tally like some people track sports scores. Half the student body was on free or reduced lunch, not because there's anything wrong with that, but because it gives you an idea of the kind of challenges that school was facing. My dad was suspending kids almost every single day. It wore on him. So when he got the opportunity to transfer to a new school this year, he jumped at it. This place was like night and day. Good funding, involved parents, students who actually wanted to learn. In his entire first year, there had only been 2 real incidents. One involved an autistic kid who had an episode, and the school handled it with compassion and proper protocol. The other incident is the one I'm about to tell you about, and it still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. I should mention that any details I include here aren't going to be word for word accurate. This all happened about 2 months ago, and I'm piecing it together from what my dad told me. But the important parts are all true, and there's video to prove it. It started with a bus driver. He's been driving kids to and from school for years. A nice guy who just wants to do his job and go home. One afternoon, he was dropping off this junior girl at her house. From what I understand, either he accidentally bumped into her while she was getting off, or he told her off for saying something rude. Honestly, knowing how some teenagers can be, I wouldn't be surprised if she mouthed off and he called her out on it. Whatever happened, this girl got angry. Really angry. She texted her mom about it the second she got inside. The mom came storming out of the house. She walked right up to the bus and started screaming at the driver through the door. Just absolutely losing her mind. The bus driver, being a reasonable person who didn't want to deal with a crazy woman, just closed the door and drove off. The next morning he pulled up to the same house to pick up the girl for school, but she wasn't standing in the driveway. Instead, there were 3 people waiting for him. The mom, the girl's older brother who was around 22 years old, and the girl's older sister who was in college. 3 adults, standing there, waiting for him. The bus driver opened the door to ask where the girl was, and that's when all 3 of them climbed onto the bus. They started screaming at him, threatening him, calling him every slur you can imagine, telling him off for daring to disrespect their precious daughter and sister. The brother was getting in his face. The mom was shrieking. The sister was backing them up. And the whole time there were kids on that bus. Young kids who had nothing to do with any of this, just trying to get to school. They were terrified. Some of them were crying. The 3 finally got off the bus, probably feeling pretty proud of themselves for putting that bus driver in his place. The driver didn't say a word. He just closed the door and drove away as fast as he could. Here's the thing those entitled idiots forgot. Every single bus in our county is equipped with 4 high-definition cameras, and those cameras have audio sensors. They caught everything, every threat, every slur, every terrified face of the kids on that bus. The driver got the kids to school safely, then went straight to the front office. And that's when my dad got involved. My dad was furious. He pulled the video feed from the bus and watched the whole thing. Then he called the school cop, who called some other cops. They had the mom arrested for malicious harassment, intimidation, trespassing, and a few other charges I can't remember off the top of my head. The principal at my dad's school gave him full control over the situation. He knows my dad doesn't mess around when it comes to protecting students and staff. So my dad got to work. First, he had the girl switch to a completely different bus route so she couldn't mess with the bus driver anymore. Then he had the mom, the brother, and the sister permanently banned from school grounds. After that, he gave the bus driver a full month of paid time off to recover from the ordeal. But my dad wasn't done. Working with the school system's lawyer, he helped collect statements from most of the kids who were on the bus that morning. They decided to press charges against the mom and the brother. They left the sister out of it, but the brother was a special case. Turns out, he was in the middle of a 6-month probationary period for a completely different crime, which meant he was basically guaranteed jail time. The trial happened about 6 weeks ago. My dad, his principal, and the school cop all went to the courthouse in case they needed to testify as witnesses. They weren't called, but they got to watch everything unfold. The school system's lawyer made his case. The evidence was overwhelming. They didn't even need to show the videos to the judge because there was so much other evidence. Witness statements from terrified children, documentation of the threats, everything. The mom's lawyer didn't even try to argue that she was innocent. He just tried to get her sentence reduced. Everyone going in expected that she might get a week in jail, maybe less. Then the judge spoke. He looked the mom dead in the eyes and laid out exactly what she had done. He told her that she had threatened the life of a man who was just doing his job. He told her that she had endangered children who had nothing to do with her dispute. He told her that she had trespassed on school property. And he made it clear that she had done all of this simply because a bus driver had told her daughter off for being rude. Then he handed down her sentence, 30 days in jail. My dad and his principal were sitting in the back of the courtroom trying not to cheer. 30 days. Way more than anyone expected. But that wasn't even the highlight. The brother's trial was scheduled right after the mom's. Back to back, there was absolutely no way he could have forgotten about it. But when they called his case, he wasn't there. He had skipped his own trial. The judge's face went cold. He immediately issued a bench warrant for the brother's arrest. They found him the next day hiding out at his mom's house, which was pretty stupid considering his mom was currently sitting in a jail cell. When they brought him before the judge, the man did not hold back. He reminded the brother that he was already on probation for another crime. He pointed out that the brother had participated in threatening and harassing a school bus driver in front of children. And he noted that on top of all that, the brother had failed to appear for his own trial. The judge then sentenced him to 1 year in prison. 1 year. A full year behind bars because he couldn't control his temper and couldn't be bothered to show up to court. The mom is still serving her 30 days as far as I know. The brother is locked up for the foreseeable future. And the girl who started this whole mess? She switched schools. I guess she couldn't handle the embarrassment of everyone knowing what her family did. The bus driver is back at work now. My dad made sure to check in on him personally. He's doing fine. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.